that I have a son. He just turned 17 August 1st. So it's like, even though, I got to fight for myself, but I also got to make sure he's well equipped, it has all the tools that he needs to survive out here. Having a son at 17, dealing with, now, this is my perception of, we'll say, age 15 all the way up to 18 right now. I think they're more outspoken, but I don't understand. I feel like they don't understand race in America. And that's just my personal opinion, because we, you know, I'm a parent that teaches about race, but I think some parents from my generation, they don't teach about race. Like, it doesn't matter, and these kids are more focused on, there might be a little bias of mine, but they're more focused on entertainment. They always need to be entertained. They don't want to read a book. They don't want to look at something and, learn. They want to, it has to be fun all the time. And I was teaching my son that, and it's like, oh man, I taught my son about dealing with the police years ago. I taught him that when he was 15. Yeah, when he was 15. How to act, but I feel like he's forgotten that, so I have to keep, jamming it in, kind of like banging it into his head. This is what you don't do. Like, for example, about a year ago, my son, he plays football, and it was after school, after football practice, whatever. They kind of, school gets out like at 3 or 2:30, and then football practice to about 6:30. His mother calls me. We're not together. Said, I can't. Where's Kylan at? I showed up to get Kylan. He wasn't there. And I'm like, where you think? He's not answering his phone. He had a cell phone. Wasn't answering his phone. Called him over and over again. Around 6:45, he answers the phone. Tells his mom and tells me that he went off to, I guess the coach had given him got fundraising, flyers. He went to a neighborhood, only black boy in the group, walking through a white neighborhood with flyers. And I don't want him to be afraid, but I said, son, you have to tell us where you are. You can't just leave campus and say, well, I'm going with them to pass out these flyers in this white neighborhood, and I'm the only black boy there. That's what made me pull him out of that school. But that's another story, but I'll get into that in a minute. But he, I had to tell him, be cautious, because I don't think he thinks about that. I think even the white boys, some of them don't think about race. They're not racialized. They don't think, oh, maybe this looks weird. We got this one black boy. He might, going to knocking on doors. He's going by himself, knocked on people's doors by himself in his white neighborhood beside the school. And I had to teach him that. And it scares me for him to be out here by himself and not understand these things.
So Eric, everything you're saying right there, you're saying that this is like an issue with the current generation, but I'm telling you, brother, what you just described is like my exact experience growing up. I was around mostly racialized white people, for the second half of my adolescence. From age, 0 through 10, I was in an all black neighborhood, all going to all black schools. Then from age 10 to, onward, I was mostly surrounded by racialized white people. And so we didn't really talk about race either. We were all ignorant about it. I was ignorant about it. They were ignorant about it. Even though I was having experiences and really had some education about the civil rights movement and the history of race, the present of race was not something we talked about. The present scenario of how things actually are now, it was not a topic of conversation in any aspect of my life. So the fact that you're even having that conversation with your son now is a huge leg up, because most people aren't having those conversations. I agree with you. Most racialized black kids, I don't think, are being actually directly talked to about race as it exists right now, although that's going to have to change, right? Because, with the transparent nature of the racial attacks that are happening right now, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty difficult to not have that conversation in the near future now too, but like, especially in the near future. So yeah, I just want to say that, you know, I agree with you about this generation, but I don't think it's much different from previous generations. I think that the education on race has always been a little bit light,
Yeah.
because it would replace the mythology that empowers this entire system. So that's why we don't allow education on race to actually flourish, and that's why there's laws in many states now against educating people on race in certain ways, right? Ways that won't disrupt the mythology and the way that white supremacy operates.
Sure.
So yeah, that's why you're right. And it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Education is the most valuable thing I think that we can possibly do at this time. Educating not only racialized black youth, but also racialized white youth, right? That like, hey, race is a problem and you're a part of it too because you are racialized and you have power because of that racialization, but you also have a burden. One thing that we don't talk about enough is the burden that white supremacy puts on racialized white people. We're constantly thinking about the benefits that they reap from being in a position of power in the hierarchy, but that position of power also comes with burdens. It's just something that we never discuss because, that would require kind of racial self-reflection within the white community, which rarely happens. Anyways, I don't want to get off on a tangent on that, but that's just something I wanted to bring up because it's something that's going to become a major feature of the online seminars that I'm going to offer for my anti-racism work in the future. So your son, so you have this, is your son going to go off to college?
Well, that's another thing. I had a conversation with him about education. I don't think he's ever been really into education. Now that's probably my fault. Because I should have drilled that in him when he was born. Didn't know any better. That was part of my growing up that I had to do. But I think he's realizing now that education is the key to success with anything. You got to learn. So he wants to go to college. That's something that he wants to do. He wants to actually do law enforcement. But he's switching from law enforcement to some job in the military, the Marine Corps, because I was in the Marine Corps. He wants to do that. So it's, I guess he does want, he will say he does want to go to college because I think he's kind of in between now. He's in 12th grade. He's need to make that decision, but you never know.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in there. You can tell him I said it or show him this video, but he needs to go to college. Like at this point, getting a degree, regardless of what you end up doing for a job or anything else, just the experience of going to those classes, experiencing higher education, I think is valuable in and of itself. So yeah. And tell him to, try community college if you don't want to go full-fledged to the 4-year university. There's a lot of good community colleges out here with great professors. You can get a great education. That's where I taught the last 6 years of my career.
That's I believe that. Yeah, I believe that's going to be the best route for him. I will tell him that though, because he needs to. He's been pushed to go to play sports, and that's another thing we do in our community. We rely heavily on sports for our kids, and I was an athlete in school. I didn't play, I wasn't like 4 years straight football. I played different sports, but I've never been a heavy, I need to play football. He's like, I need to play football every single year. And I believe that's what makes him, that's why he even goes to school. His mother put him in football because she said, well, he doesn't like anything but about school, but football. I said, okay, well, I mean, and me and her have different parenting styles. I really endorse education, but she's like trying to just get him to school. So I can kind of understand that too, because it's hard, I can't, I can only put my 2 cents in with education. I just want him to follow the right path, and I know there's going to be some bumps, some roads he's going to have to climb out of, some valleys, all that stuff.
Yeah, and you can't do anything. He's going to have to do
he's going to learn.
Yeah. I know that's got to be hard for you to like just know that that's on the way, and
Yeah, I don't want him to hit those same hurdles, but I know it's like, man, I'm trying to help you, but it's just like I'm getting all this resistance. Like, well, okay, Dad, I know, or he just always says okay, and this does the opposite of what I've asked.
well,
It's
listen,
just
let me give you one piece of advice then, and like maybe you've already been doing this or whatnot, but it's just something that I found is useful in my communication with people, specifically. And not only in the race context, but other contexts as well, where you're trying to give people perspective, right?
mhm,
I think that oftentimes we try to kind of tell people, hey, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. This is, like, but ultimately, I think what's more impactful is talking to people about your own personal experience and what you experienced and what you went through. Because for some reason, people are able to take in the information better when you're talking about yourself, even if you're talking about them too, right? But, if you are centering your experience and being like, it helps them reflect on their own life more than telling them
mm,
directly, like, I am talking about you. I don't know why, but that is definitely a technique that I found really helps is focusing on your own evolution, your own growth, your own experience with these barriers
mm,
and, how you dealt with it. And then that gets them thinking on their own. Okay, well,
mm,
what if I was in this situation or what if I experienced that, and that is what creates the curiosity for them to like ask questions or want to learn more and then actually be able to
mm,
accept the advice that you have. So
mhm.
that's just something.
I
Um,
think I've done a little bit of that with him. It's just because I would emphasize my son is very very tall, very dark skinned. So it's like these are things that as a black person you have to think about. Is they already think you are, and dangerous. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I've had people being this color or light skin, women holding their purse. I said, but my son is very big. He's a football player. He's, really, he's dark skinned. And so it's like, they're already going to think something of you. I've taught him that. And so hopefully he took some of that stuff and said, okay, this is the world I'm living in. But I don't know. I
well,
don't know.
whether he took it or not,
We'll see.
Marigoth here in the chat says everything you say will be remembered at some point in his life. Believe that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I do believe that too. So, all you can do is plant the seeds, and then whatever
Yeah.
happens after that is up to him. But I'm sure you've done a good job, Eric. You've been thoughtful,
Appreciate that.
and that's all anyone can ask.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.